time to catch up with Nicole Overall, as we do, the member for Monaro. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Last time I had you on, you copped your first grilling. Are you okay? Have you recovered?
Oh, look, it's been a hectic week, but I listened back to it, and I think I always give as good as I get. So I think it was a good one.
Let's talk about this Brumbies issue, because the minister has now implemented a review of the situation, the Brumby management plan. But I wonder if this review is firstly, who's going to conduct it, and whether or not it's going to be viewed from the right angle. Because those that think that the Brumbies are a problem say there's about 14,000 of them. Those that live in the park say, well, there's nowhere near that. So, I mean, we're already starting from a problem before we even begin, aren't we?
Look, the numbers have been a contentious issue throughout, and through the implementation, and then, of course, the legislation being approved in Parliament last year. It's always been contentious from both sides, and there are some, absolutely way out there numbers, and I'm talking, people suggesting 125,000 horses. That'd be a horse every time you entered the park.
Yeah.
But again, it's about finding that balance. This is a management plan. What was agreed to was in order to manage the horses so that the most vulnerable wilderness areas of the park were going to remain undamaged, brought back to their original state as we move into the future. It's about the management. That's what we need to ensure is occurring. My biggest concern from a local member point of view, and speaking with our communities constantly throughout the last week, is that many of them feel that it's the plan that is not being implemented. The intent of that plan is not being honoured as it should. So it's not necessarily around the numbers that I'm getting the feedback on. Of course, there is that as well. But it is the processes and procedures and what was agreed to. Is that occurring? Does it need to be improved? And how this needs to happen so the community has confidence in what's going on.
Yeah, the other issue I see here, and all of that aside, and I understand that is an issue, whether or not the plan has been implemented, but it would appear that whoever is conducting these culls are treating it like the Wild West. I mean, we had reports last week that there were bushwalkers that had to hide under a tree while they were being shot at from a helicopter effectively. Now, regardless of whether or not the plan's implemented, whether or not we need to cull Brumbies or not, whoever is controlling this, and we know it's National Parks and Wildlife, are clearly letting it get out of hand.
Well, look, in terms of National Parks and Wildlife, they're of course stating that stringent measures are in place to ensure public safety. Now, that's the statement that they issued at the end of last week. Nonetheless, the review that is now being conducted is extending to the safety measures, because the claim around those shots, my understanding is, that was actually during one of the deer culls, because horses are far from the only problem in that national park.
Sure.
That's one of the things that I want to draw people's attention to as well. Deer are prolific. You've got wild dogs, you've got wild pigs, you've got foxes and cats. There is a problem across the board. So this narrow focus just on Brumbies is one of the things that I understand people getting upset about. Because there are other matters that need to be dealt with and addressed.
Sure,
now,
but it doesn't matter what you're shooting. You've got to make sure that you're not shooting while people are wandering through the park.
Absolutely you do. And, of course, that is of paramount concern and the thing that should be uppermost in everyone's mind as we go forward. And the fact that the concern for me personally, it's like, and it's no disputation of anything that's being said from a formal point of view, but the fact that the horses were found so close to walking trails that they could be stumbled across by bush rangers, that suggests that it is in proximity to things that it perhaps shouldn't be. And again, that comes back to the intent of the plan. Are these culls being conducted in accordance with the plan, in accordance with the areas in which they're supposed to be being conducted, in the best possible safety measures and precautions being enacted as it possibly can? Now, that's what National Parks is also suggesting that they're reviewing at the moment as well. In relation to the implementation of the plan itself, well, that would be, in my estimation, the Minister and the advisory committee that is part of overseeing the management plan as well. Now, again, my understanding is that the members of that advisory committee have been decided upon. I'm not sure at this point. I haven't had that confirmation from the Minister about whether they have been publicly announced. But there is an advisory committee. There was an advisory committee and extensive community consultation that, of course, took place over a number of years in order to draft the management plan. And then I'm also of the understanding that RSPCA New South Wales has now independently responded to the claims about animal cruelty and the complaints that have been advanced in that space. So I think that there are a number of steps that are being taken now, which is great to see. This is not going to go away. We do need to address it. And again, I keep coming back to the fact that it's absolutely on the government, on the Minister, and on myself as the local member to ensure that what's being relayed to our community is accurate, is clear, and they have confidence in what's going on.
And what, shouldn't there still be a police, given that there is public safety issues here, shouldn't there be a police investigation?
Look, I'm not sure about that as well, and we're heading back to Parliament. I'm going this afternoon because we do have 2 days of Parliament this week, and I'm happy to address that with Paul Toole, who of course is the Police Minister and the Deputy Premier. I'm not sure myself of the processes in that regard. I don't believe that there has been an official complaint made to police for an investigation. But again, I don't want to talk about that too much because I am flying blind there. But I will find out more in relation to that matter and face-to-face so that there's no misunderstanding on anyone's part.
Okay. Now, there's been a $1.6 million grant for Bungendore Preschool. What's that going to provide?
Yes, that's some great news that emerged from last week. So Bungendore Preschool, which does an absolutely phenomenal job, but it is packed to the rafters. They've called for a number of years for some assistance to be able to grow their space so that they can provide for more of our local families. The very active committee had approached me during my by-election campaign. I talked with Minister Sarah Mitchell, Education Minister Sarah Mitchell, about all of this, and now we've secured a grant of $1.6 million. It's going to provide an additional 58 spaces for our local families to be able to have their kids, and it's going to be so fantastic, Stephen. We've got an education precinct in that area of Bungendore that's going to be from preschool to year 12, and the kids can know and the families can know that they're being looked after in that environment in their own home.
And quickly, before we finish up, it's been a pretty big weekend of sport in Queanbeyan.
Yes, absolutely. So many finalists all over the place. We had Queanbeyan Whites last week. We've had Queanbeyan Tigers, men and women's teams. We've had kids teams who have been blitzing it. Further afield, I've had Bombala Healers and Cooma Tigers. Unfortunately, so the Roos got up in the reserve grade yesterday against Gungahlin Bulls, only by 2 points. Unfortunately, Roos went the way of Raiders and went down to West Belconnen yesterday, which was a bit of a shock, as were the Raiders on Friday night. But, that's the way it goes. Once again, though, we're the city of champions for a reason.
The less we say about that Raiders result, the better. Nicole, good to talk to you. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Stephen.
Nicole Overall, the member